up the sky, burning tires all around. Kicking up the side-by-sides, roaring engines loud. Friends and family gather, let the good times roll. Mud stains on faces, hearts wildly out of control. Smashing the throttle open, feel the power surge. Hitting trails and ridges, laughter's all we heard. Cracks of cold beer bottles, echoes in the air. Sunsets fade tonight, we got no time to spare. Off-road shenanigans, tearing up the ground. Mud and sweat and joy, we're camaraderie found. We live for these wild moments, life on untamed land. Bonded by the freedom, deep within the sand. Bonfires lighting up our faces, cheers and songs. Through the darkness, feels like we belong.
All right. Hello, everyone. What is going on with our screen? Why is it like all funky? Let's see here. Boom, boom, bam. Give me a full screen or not. Oh, well, it is what it is. Not really sure what's going on there, but hope everybody's doing well tonight. Another great episode of ORS Shenanigans Shop Talk. Got Michael with me tonight. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing good.
Yeah, you're doing a lot better than you were earlier.
I am. A couple more cough drops and another sweet tea would be all right.
Yeah, for sure. So, man, we've got so much going on. It's unreal. I can't even see straight anymore.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about everything that's going on around here.
So, we just went out and had a nice long weekend at Muddin For A Cure at River Run. That was a blast. That was something new to me. Plus, we're getting ready for our event coming up in a week and a half. So, Let's Get Crawling's going to be something else for us. Plus, I got my four-wheeler fixed today, but there's a couple other vehicles that need to get fixed from this last weekend.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't even make it to the park. Literally, my fuel pump died as the guys came over to the house to pick it up to load it on the trailer for us. So, I was kind of bummed out. Tore it down. Zach did a great job helping me figure it out.
What kind of vehicle you have again? I can't remember.
It's a 2020 CF Moto 500.
That's right, CF Moto. So those things are actually coming about, man. We're really starting to grow out there. I'm seeing more and more of them, and a lot of people are starting to come out with more parts and performance parts for them.
Dude, those are like at least 4 or 5 that were almost identical to mine.
Yeah.
There's actually a guy riding around with an orange one just like mine. And I was so mad every time we passed by our campsite. I was like, oh, mine's sitting at the shop. Oh, mine's sitting at the shop. I was kind of bummed out.
So just tell you, so his has been working great. He uses it at the house all the time and drives around, does his chores.
I used it for 2 days before we loaded it up.
No problem.
2 days.
No issues. He brings it over here to the shop to get loaded up, and it goes kapoof. He got scared. He didn't want the mud.
So I figured it out when Zach and I were messing with it. We figured it out. I actually finally took, now mind you, this is a 2020. I finally took the toolkit out of the bag that all my paperwork was in and threw it in the trunk in case I expected to swamp it at some point. And I want to be able to pull a plug. So I was like, you know what? I'll put my little toolkit in there. I screwed up because now my four-wheeler was scared. Oh no, it's going to break. So I didn't even make it to the park. thank goodness y'all have 10,000 other ones that are laying around. Preston had both of his buggies. Zach had both of his. So we were all trading out. You had yours. Caden had his. So we were all kind of swapping around. And Preston was like, dude, which one do you want to drive now? And I was like, well, I'll do the Razor for a while. I'll drive the Ranger for a while. So, that's what's good about being surrounded with good friends, that everyone's like, well, just use my spare buggy.
Right. Well,
So
definitely
that
enough buggies,
made
that's
it
for sure.
enjoyable.
There was enough buggies out there. I think we had a total of, let's see here, let's do a count. We had mine, Preston's 2, Zach's 2, that's 5, and we had Caden's, and then
Yeah, that was it.
that was it. Was that it? Six.
Yeah,
six
mine was
buggies?
supposed to be 7.
Oh, and the Ace.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
part
that's
of Zach's
Zach's 2.
too.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. So yeah, so 6. We're supposed to have stuff. That's right.
Yeah.
So
And we did. We had just enough room for my 4-wheeler to fit on the back of the trailer.
so many more because
And
of all the stuff we had.
oh yeah. Well, I mean, it was a
but
blast.
getting ready for the event and everything we had to do. I mean, we had some very last minute things to get accomplished. I mean, the general finally got his legs. Lieutenant Dan
Dan got his legs.
Lieutenant Dan got his legs back, and I mean, it was a big beast. I mean, it was so happy to be back on the trails, and unfortunately, I think for sitting so long, it finally had enough because it didn't like the 4-wheel drive very much.
Well, I don't know. It could have been 40 something inches of mud you're trying to go through. That it wasn't even mud.
Yeah,
That stuff was like
man,
driving
so
through
freaking
concrete. That stuff
outraged.
was ridiculous.
So, okay, so let's step back. Let's go back to where that all began because everything was going great up to that point.
It was.
We found one of our buddies that we ride with all the time, Dakota, up there. And Dakota's like, come with us, we'll ride with you. We were going the opposite direction, mind you.
Well, it was supposed to be a short run because we were going to go to what event was about to start?
One of the races, yeah. So, and then, okay, so we really haven't really said much. Well, we were at Muddin For A Cure at River Run ATV Park. We'll start there. And we got out there, Thursday night, right? Got out there Thursday night, and everything was going great. And then on Friday, when we ran into Dakota on the trail, we were actually just passing the wash bays there. And he's like, come on with us. Let's go for a ride. So we all turned around and we started following him. Well, then we get out. We're going on down, and then we find somebody that we run in. And the funny thing about it is, before we find this guy that we're about to talk about, Dakota makes a turn into what I call the playground out there. And when I saw him go into the playground area, I was like, the first thought that came through mind, I'm really happy that it's dry out here because this would be a very bad situation for most of the buggies that are going back there right now. Because normally that's about a foot of water all through that area back there. And you can't tell what holes what. You can't tell how deep anything is out there until you get into it. And it's too late. And if you go back to our YouTube channel, we actually have a recovery from when we recovered a vehicle out from back there. And it was not a nice recovery. He ended up losing.
Wasn't that right where Preston and I got stuck the first time?
It is. It actually is. So if you go back to our YouTube channel and find that video, you'll see side by side that got buried back there. We yanked on them and put our kinetic rope on them and pulled on them. And finally, with my 12,000-pound winch, I was butted up against a tree so that way he could drag me. And I was pulling him. And he just wasn't budging. I mean, we're talking about a small 4-seater, buggy that really didn't have anything huge on it. I think it had maybe 32, maybe 34-inch tires on it. They weren't huge. And we ended up hooking another side-by-side, the Razor, up to it, and then tandem pulling it. And that's when he started breaking loose and coming forward. Well, after we got him out of the hole, we determined why he wasn't moving because his driver's side rear wheel was rucked up underneath a freaking root that was this big around and hung onto him like an anchor. Well, all his suspension, his tires, his wheel, his upper and lower A-arms, his shock, and axle, and all that stayed there behind him as we pulled.
Oh, wow.
So if you remember back what happened in Hidden Falls when I was getting yanked up the mountain,
right.
Same difference, just in mud.
Just in the mud.
So, so when we started getting back there and I saw that we were back there, and I was like, oh, this is not going to be good. Well, we're going, and I'm like, okay, it's dry back here. It's actually not that bad. It's actually looking pretty good. I'm actually pretty happy about this. This is going to be an interesting ride. Then we get all the way back to where that guy was stuck at, where I recovered him. And then we ran into that guy that was wandering in the woods. Hey, man, what's going on? Hey, I'm stuck over there on the other side. PTSD, started having flashbacks of all the stuff, that we've already dealt with back over there. I was like, this is not going to be good, guys. This is not going to be good. And as we're like linking up to go over there, I look back, and then you and Preston are like buried in the mud. I mean, nut deep. I mean, y'all were
Yeah.
y'all were stuck.
My wife gave me all kinds of grief because of the video I put on my TikTok. But there's like, you guys are barely even moving. Why did you take the video? I was like, do you not see the recovery line on us? She was like, what? I was like, we were having to winch out of there. I was like, Preston's 40-inch tires, right? 40s on Preston's or 37s?
Yeah.
I was like, the whole back tires were completely buried. I was like, the front tires were barely up on top. And it's only because the guy that was we were using as the winch point was higher and it was lifting the front end up anyways. I was like, but we're just kind of creeping along, and those big old thick mud paddles that you guys got on those things were just completely slick.
It turned into baldy.
wow.
I mean, it
Yeah,
was like
instantly.
slick drag duration tires. I mean, they were
And it
insane.
stuck so bad. Like, normally mud will fling off if you can get a little bit of wheel speed. It didn't matter. That stuff was like glue.
And there was like no water in there. It
No.
was just mud. It was
Yeah.
like clay, thick modeling clay. You know what I mean? It was just,
that's a good way to describe it, is modeling clay.
and it did exactly that. It modeled itself around the tires. I mean, it filled the inside of the wheels. It looked like just one big chocolate donut that was on the buggies. And so we finally got y'all out. We went y'all out
Yeah.
finally. And then so we proceeded to go over to where that other guy was
The
stuck.
wandering man.
And then Jason or Dakota was in front of me. And then he went through, I mean, that ravine he went through was not shallow. I mean,
No.
he went in and it went deep, and he started coming out of it, and he just didn't have enough. I don't think he had enough wheelbase really. What it needed is, or the clearance really. And he just, that rear corner sunk, and he was stuck. And I'm sitting on the other side going, nope. And then I look behind, and y'all are gone. I'm like, they bailed. They bailed.
No. So right after we got cleared out, there was like 2 more buggies went through, and somebody else got buried. So we didn't know if we were gonna have to spin around and winch them out. So all of a sudden, when we finally caught up to you, we're like, okay, this kind of sucks. Now we got those buried there. We got the ones behind us. So then you crossed over the pond to get to the other side to help them out.
Yeah, so I backed out of the hole, and then like going all the way back around where y'all originally were stuck the first time is where the swamp part of it, right, was. And I mean, when you stand back and look at it, it's like, that's questionable. Like, do you really want to put your bug in that? Because you have no idea how bad it is from point A to point B.
Yeah. It's not like when we're out on the rock crawling trails where you go, oh, that's the trail. You're just looking across water and going, I see an exit point, but I don't know from A to B where I'm supposed to go. That was kind of trippy.
That's when you grab your life jackets and take your seatbelts off in case you got to jump out.
Oh no, the life jacket is what I needed later.
So,
Okay, not as much as Elizabeth, but still needed one.
We get in there, right, and it's not bad. I mean, there's a few other vehicles that have already passed through, and I'm cruising through. Water's about halfway up on my tire, so about 2 feet deep. And I get all the way to the other end. Well, there's like 3 or 4 buggies on the exit part, and they're avoiding the normal way out, and they're going like cutting themselves through the trees and going around it, and then they already buried a Cannon Defender or Commander or something like that. It was buried. And they're winching it out. I'm going, do I continue to go straight? Because they've already avoided this once. So what do I do? And I was like, you know what? There's only one way. And one way was straight. So I continued on, and the buggy started sinking. I was like, oh God. And I stayed in. And I pulled out of it just enough. I was like, whew.
Well, what got me was Caden followed you.
Yes, he did.
In a buggy that's half your size. I was like, well, if I get stuck, Chris is in front of him. We'll start dragging out the ropes until we can reach him.
speaking of ropes, that's that would have been nice to have in the back. That's one of the essentials you're supposed to take with you to connect ropes, soft shackles,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. I had a brand new kinetic rope, that 30-footer
But
that Rhino was so nice to send me as a gift. And where was it, Michael?
it was staying nice and clean in the trailer, so it was always presentable.
Where was it, Michael? It was stuck in the freaking trailer.
I don't even know if
Nuts.
the kinetic would have helped us with the way that mud was there, though.
Well,
And
I
the
think it
trail
would
was
have.
too tight.
Okay, so that's where I was going to go. I think it would have helped us if we would have had enough long, stretch to actually get the
Yeah.
force to go. But there were so many trees in there. We were literally trying to figure out just how to get to where the stuck buggy was.
Oh yeah.
So Dakota makes his way in there. He gets himself positioned, and no, I'm sorry, he's still stuck on the other side. That's right. I'm making my way around. That's right. Let me step back one. I'm making my way around. So I finally get over to him, and I'm looking on how he's stuck in there. And he's got a tree here. He's buried driver's side, door deep, and there's like 1,000 trees in this area over here that's just like a maze to get around. There's no way for me to get from point A to point B in my big old buggy. So
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how you got there.
I
'Cause
turned
Preston
into
and
a,
I
I
had
turned into a
to.
bulldozer very quickly. I was taking out trees this big, just like driving through the woods trying to get to him. And I'm praying to God that my trail that I'm taking doesn't turn into what he's stuck in, because there's
Right.
no water where he's at. Remind you, he's in tree leaf duff, and it looks like normal ground, but he's stuck deep, and there's no water anywhere to be found in that area where he was at. So I was kind of scared. I was trying to second guessing myself on, should I really be doing this. um, but we got back there. I got myself positioned. I ended up having to back into a hole. That way we could pull him straight enough to get him out of the hole he was. But mind you, where I was, he was probably 50 feet in front of me. So I had enough room to pull him towards me. Now, here's the problem. The problem is where I was, I backed myself up to a tree because I thought, okay, we could get him out, and I'll just drive forward and pull out. Well, that mud wanted him, and that trail wanted him, and it just kept pulling him more and more and more and more towards me. And we ended up touching driver's side tire to driver's side tire. We were right on each other. And he still leaned over like this. There's a tree in front of him right here. And now we're going, now what, guys? Now we really screwed ourselves, because there's no going back.
No, definitely not.
There was definitely no going backwards. And going forward was a force. So we were back there for hours. And then y'all, tell me what happened on your side of the pod, because
So
while we're messing with all this, you've got your own show going on.
So Preston's power steering overheated when we got stuck, and we didn't realize it until we started trying to get through that little bit to get back over
So
where you were.
his steering is just no.
Yeah, he's just double arming that thing trying to get the steering going. When Caden followed you over, he decided to come back to us and got hung up.
Oh, so he decided to make the trip again.
Yeah.
Oh, because the first time wasn't good enough for him.
Yeah, because he wanted to go with you and was like, "Oh, I want no part of all that mud," and turned around and came back to us. And he was like, "What are you guys still doing over here?" We're like, "Well, we got this, we got that." So Zach was helping us trying to get maneuvered around. Well, in the meantime, one of the other buggies that was following us broke an axle. Then we had one blow off.
Who broke an axle? I didn't know about anybody breaking an axle.
It was one of the other ones that were in that group that just kind of started tagging along with us.
Really?
Yeah. So
oh, nice.
It started off with what, 6 of us?
Yes.
And in total, by the time we got to where we were all stuck, there was like 20.
Wow.
So everyone just kept piling up behind us.
I didn't know that. See,
Yeah.
that I couldn't see y'all because of the forest that was
So
between y'all.
where Preston and I got stuck, another buggy went through. He broke an axle. Another one tried to go through, blew his tires off the bead. So he was trying to scrape mud out of the rim and tire so they could reseat his tire.
This is the first time me hearing about all this. I didn't even hear about all this going on.
So when you were trying to get us to come over, we're like, we're still trying to help all these guys get out. So guys scraping out mud and the other one's doing this and that. And so they finally got enough of their group through that they turned around and started bulldozing over a small tree so they could turn back around and go back out. Next group comes in, they start getting stuck. They had somebody else lose, they burned up their transmission. So he could not get into 4-wheel drive at all.
Really?
Yeah, he was having a hard time getting into shift. It
What kind
just
of
wasn't.
vehicle is this? I'm just curious because I mean,
Oh hell, I don't
We're-
remember.
too bad Preston wasn't here.
Oh
'cause he
yeah,
would
I was gonna
remember.
say Preston would be able to tell you right off the top of his head. I want to say that was another Razor. Wasn't very big at all. I mean, small, probably 32s. I mean, nothing. But yeah, all of a sudden he was like, he had a decent sized lift though.
So then something
Um,
happened with Caden.
well,
What happened with Caden?
when Caden was trying to come back out of that little swampy pond deal, so Caden's using his for the hunting ranch and stuff too, and had
With
that
BKTs on it, mind you.
with BKTs. But he forgot to take off that huge hitch he has for towing around the trailer out at the ranch.
You're right. Yeah.
So by the time we got him out, we realized that he was dragging an anchor because that thing was just stuck. As soon as he started coming up off the ledge of the swamp and was getting up on the land, that thing was just burying down with the
Just
ruts
hooking 'em in
and
there
just hooking in.
like a plow. Huh?
Yeah. So I was like, oh. So we finally got that off. So, but when he went back, he did not follow this exact same line, and he found one of the deeper ruts, and they started getting in a little bit deeper water. He was like, I'm not going back across a third time. So between getting stuck in the water and knowing that if he didn't find the right line, it would get deep quick. So
Oh, so when did Zach's buggy get involved in this? Because he ended up breaking something.
so he ended up breaking his steering. So at one point, someone from your side called over to one of the people in our group on our side.
Yes.
And it's like,
we were
where's
screaming
Preston?
we're like Titanic over. Oh,
I could hear you say, come over. And we're like, dude, we're not going over. We got no steering. He's starting to swamp. This guy's not got 2-wheel drive only. This guy's got, we're like, no, we're not going across. You got to come back.
So you want to know the bad thing about that whole entire scenario? The exit was like 50 yards through the other side. So as soon as you cross the pond or the swamp or whatever you want to call it, about 50 yards there was the park road, the main park road to get to. So getting to that and instead of going back through everything we went through was a lot shorter to get to.
So that explains what Dakota's comment was later. So I didn't realize we were that close to the exit.
Yes.
So then Preston and I get over to help you guys. Preston burns up his winch, so he couldn't winch. So in the meantime, Caden and Zach were like, all right, we're going back with this other group, and we're not crossing the water. And that's when Zach broke his steering.
He broke a tie rod, right, on the driver's side.
Tie rod came out of the rack.
Like actually the threads pulled out from the rack itself.
So he does the old ratchet strap fix and limps it all the way back to the campsite with a ratchet strap.
Very challenging, just because it's like it's not a straight shot.
Oh no, he's all zigging in out of all those trees and everything else with a ratchet strap holding his rack together. Yeah.
Fun.
I don't know what they're hooked up to get that ratchet strap to not move, but they found the right spot.
Zach and Caden, they're on their way back to camp. They're like, screw this.
Yeah,
we're done.
Like, we're not crossing that water. No.
Meanwhile, I'm over in Forest screaming for help and bloody murder over because we're like getting bad over here. Things are getting really bad. I'm like, we're winching to the top of trees, trying to pull out.
That guy that was stuck that you guys went over to help. All of a sudden, we're like, oh, we got to get the line up in the tree. That dude was a spider monkey. Was up that thing in like 30 seconds. I was like, you know, that guy worked power line somewhere because he was up that tree with no gear, no nothing. All of a sudden, he's 15, 20 feet in the tree. I'm like, what in the world am I watching?
Spider monkey.
And I was just like, wow, that dude is gone. So he gets up there, he hooks up. So we're pulling him out of the suction of the mud. And then Dakota was pulling him to the side. So you were getting him up. He was going over, finally dragging him.
So let's back up a little bit because originally you're on the other side. And eventually, so y'all finally are like, all right.
Well, after the phone call. Yeah, after the phone call, we realized you guys were all
somebody called y'all, right?
Yeah.
Says, hey, come over and help us.
Yeah. So they called over and was like, hey, you guys got to come over here. And So the only one that was big enough that we were just like, well, we'll just go and see what happens was Preston. Zach wasn't quite sure where the line was, so he didn't want to jump his new Ranger in there. And so we get across, and so we're trying to give a hand. And then a couple winches in, and
So let's talk about some of the problems I was having, because the recovery probably would have gotten a lot smoother, but I was having problems of my own. So we'll go back in time a little bit, because back when the last time I was at Marble Falls, or the time before, whatever, we were doing loose rock, and the battery mounting clamp to my battery broke when we were bouncing on the rocks, stuff like that, which caused the battery to slide back, hit the mount, shorted out. I thought the buggy was on fire. It might have been fire. I don't know. There was smoke and stuff like that coming out. And so we we get out, we check everything, but the terminal itself, where all the the cables and all the wires go to, it has like melted around itself. Well, it's broke itself free now. At this point, we're at the mud part.
so that's the threaded post, right?
That's the threaded post.
Okay.
So I'm having electrical issues. Like, my electrical system is short in and out. My voltage is dropping down to like 8 volts. The stator's doing its best to keep up. I've got a 12,000-pound winch, probably pulling 30 to 40 amps on this thing. And my, the computer to my buggy just keeps shutting down on me because we're dropping voltage. And so I'm like in desperate, and there's no like trouble fix to that. I mean, like, the terminal's broken. It's just sitting on top of the battery, just trying to make some kind of connection so things will work right. So I'm in a really bad predicament. And I forgot about that until we started using the winch and noticed the voltage drops and everything else. So here we are fighting with that factor and trying to just
Yeah, because
make
you could
things
either
work.
put it in gear and try to drive a little bit, or you could winch.
Exactly. I couldn't do both. There was just not enough power to be drawn. And so when we're using the winch, there's only like 12.4 volts, 20 point. Well, anybody knows on a buggy, there's normally charging 14 to 14.3 volts. So you normally have plenty of voltage to utilize everything you need to, and it just wasn't happening that day. So we get him out, right? We finally winched him out. Dakota grabbed him and pulled him over, and y'all hooked onto him with y'all's razor, I think, right? And we
Yep.
just kind of yanked him out of there. I was going up to a tree with my winch and pulling him up as we're dragging him out. Finally got him out of there, and then it's my turn. And by that time, I'm in a bad situation, because the guy in front of me that we're recovering has made one hell of a hole in the ground.
Well, not only that, the whole time you were winching, it was dragging you in.
Right, pulling me into that tree, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, into the tree and pulling you down.
Yeah.
Because as you were pulling, because he was already lower than you, so as you were pulling, it was sucking you down to his level.
Right.
Which, I mean, your buggy, even when we were out up on dry ground, your winch point to where he was, that was already a 1.5 foot difference, because he was such a smaller buggy compared to you.
Right. So, we get him out of the way, and then I'm like, all right, guys, this is not going to be good. I'm just letting you know right now, this is not going to be good. I mean, you saw what he went through. I'm just going to sink just like you. There's a bottomless pit. I mean, there was like quicksand out there.
Yeah.
There was no bottom.
Well,
to
there was
it.
nothing quick about it, but it just kept going down.
And for something like that, you need to be in. You need to have a running start, kind of, to get the momentum going, to get through everything. And I just didn't have that momentum at all. There was no momentum. You're in the mud, you're stuck. Now it's time to get out, and that just wasn't happening. So we did everything we can to give it the fuel and give it the throttle we needed to get out of there, and just slowly just buried itself. Of course, I'm dealing with voltage issues and all that kind of stuff too, so I'm having no power and everything. And then it turns into a recovery for me then at that point, right? And then everybody's like, because I'm the biggest buggy out there, so I'm not going to be an easy recovery.
No.
It's going to take a bigger buggy my size or bigger to get me out of there. Well, and the problem is, you couldn't pull me backwards because there was trees right there, right?
Oh, yeah.
There was trees right there, and I was so up against that other tree that the tires were rooting up against me and holding me back, and we weren't coming out of the hole. And the winch lines that were on Preston's buggy, and Dakotas were just braking left and right. They weren't doing their job.
Yeah, well, at that point, Preston's wasn't breaking. That's just when we had no power.
Right, yeah.
So
no
we
power,
just
but
had
but
20
Dakota's
something
broke
feet.
like several
Dakota,
times.
yeah.
Dakota, come see me about a winch line, buddy. Time to get you a winch line. But it was crazy.
Oh, out of the deer hunt, huh? That's awesome, Brian.
There you go.
I thought for sure you were a lineman the way you were up that tree. That's crazy.
He put on a hell of a show for us. But anyways, we got him out, right? And so once we started making that momentum forward, I mean, my winch is the only thing really trying to get myself out of there. We had a block and tackle. We were tying to any tree that we possibly could to get myself out, and fighting between winch power, battery issues, and buggy power, which I still have buggy problems. I need to. I got bad O2 sensor. I need to change up my O2 sensor. I've known about it. I should have done it before going out there. Shame on me. But
when we're on the rocks, we don't notice it as much.
Exactly.
You don't get bogged down as heavy.
So as we're moving forward, the buggy's doing what? It's just getting deeper and deeper and deeper, and I'm going right back to where he was stuck, where he originally was stuck at. And then it got bad, and then it was like, I was getting frustrated because I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna get myself out of this.
So I got thinking about this later. So as I'm having my nightmares back at the trailer about this thing, was the fact that with your skid plates that you have on yours, that thing is just a completely slick bottom.
Yes.
Had it been one that had any type of contours or anything else to it, that would have made it so much harder because all that would have just kept sticking.
It did.
And instead, you just got to kind of slide across the top.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about it. If it would have had anything kind of open carriage underneath there or any kind of like factory kind of stuff, it would have grabbed and just clumped that mud up, made it a lot harder. So the Super ATV AV or the like the UMVH or whatever they call it, the ultra high density
Right.
plastic they put underneath, or just like it's like glass underneath there. It works really good. Works really good on the rocks too. That's where I noticed it mostly at. But so we get about almost all the way out. We've got several other people that came and joined us. But they were trail cruising. And we're like, no, don't do it. Stop.
Yeah.
So,
thank goodness.
And then they're like, oh, we'll help you. And it's like, please, we need more help. So we were hooking up winch lines, and I think we broke his winch line once or twice. Or no, I think it was the rope that Dakota had. We had like a tree slinger rope, or actually it was the winch lines they use for lineman trucks. And it snapped a couple times hooking onto me. And then finally we get myself free out of that crap, and then we got to go through the ravine. So I'm sitting there thinking this is just not going to be good at all, trying to get through this. So I had enough power to pull myself through there, and then I get in the middle of it, and it's just like everybody's like, stop before you bury yourself. So and then I think one or two side by sides hooked up to me, I can't remember, and then pulled me the rest of the way out. I still had power at that point, so we were able to get myself out. But man, we were out there forever. I mean, I think we were out there. I'm not exactly sure. I didn't catch the time we were out there, but we were out there 4 to 6 hours. I mean, it was insane.
Yeah, I think it was like 4-hour window.
The bad thing about it, he was supposed to be in a race. He was supposed to be one of the.
That's right. That's right. Brian was supposed to be racing.
He was supposed to be in a race, and poor guy didn't make it because of him being stuck. But that's okay. We missed the races too. But that's what we're there for, is help each other out. I mean, we're not going to leave anybody in the woods behind, no matter what the costs are, right?
Yeah.
So, but other than that, once we got out of there, everybody was really urgently wanting to get back to camp.
No. No, we did not get out of there quickly.
Everybody was urgently wanting to get out of camp. But what happened, Michael? I mean, something happened on your end again.
So you get back across the creek. I think Brian followed you back out, right? Or did he turn around and he went out the other way?
He actually went through it before I did. He turned around before I got winched out. He actually went back through it again.
That's right. Yep.
He cut up a little bit higher, and he just got onto it, and he was able to get out of that. Razor had enough power to pull him out.
So you guys went that way. So Dakota, Preston turned around and go back across the pond. Preston picked a decent line. Dakota was about 6 inches too far and decided to lay it sideways in the pond.
So I don't know any of this is going on. I'm posted on the other side, kind of. I got weeds in between us. I'm sitting there waiting on y'all, waiting for the other crew, like getting there, because there's people still wanting to come across. I'm
Yeah.
like, guys, turn around, don't drown. It's bad over there. I mean, stop doing it, because we've got a lot of buggies stuck over here. It wasn't just us. Think about the groups that were over there in that same area they had broken differentials and broken axles. Your side had other people getting stuck and broken, and people just kept coming.
Everyone
was
was
like,
coming across the
"Stop,
pond and
turn around."
tearing up that one spot. So
So-
coming out of that water, everyone just kept digging it out, digging it out, digging it out. Well, Preston, the perfect spot. We just go in nice and even. We're about halfway across that water, and we start hearing Elizabeth screaming. Also, we're like, "What is she hollering about?" And we finally get back where I can turn my head around, and here's Dakota's buggy sitting sideways in the water. She's climbing out underneath him because her side's going underwater. So Preston and I, what's I say? My offer still stands.
If anything was broken, we appreciate it. I don't think we ended up breaking it. I ended up breaking a drive shaft, but it was way after that.
Yeah, it had nothing to do with that one.
Yeah, so when we got back to camp later on, I don't know if it was that day or the next day when I figured out my drive shaft was broken.
When you guys went wheeling that night, when you guys went up
yeah,
Highline.
Right. I went through that deep hole. That's what it was. We'll get to that in a minute. But
so we're getting back across there, and Dakota's over sideways. And so Preston and I are trying to figure out, well, what's faster, trying to back up or going and turning around? And I look back, and I just see that buggy keep going farther and farther sideways. I'm like, well, Preston, you go turn around, so it's easier to go forward than it is back up. You can't see out of those. There's no mirrors. You don't got no rear view, no nothing. So I'm like, you just go and turn around. I was like, shit, wait a minute. It might be faster if I get out and just go back and then at least try to hold the buggy over. So I jump out of Preston's halfway through the pond, and I'm trying to walk through the mud / swim through the ruts. So I get back, and Preston gets turned around at the other side. We're holding it all up. We get the buggy up to where it's stable. Preston gets in a position when we get him hooked up, and you finally come back. You're like, where are these guys?
Well, it was because I was like, I'm sitting here waiting for everybody to come back over. It's a nice little easy trail back over. And I'm like, it's getting late. I'm helping other people get unstuck over here. Can we please get out of here? And I look back and I see, oh no.
So you come back over, and then we get the right winch positions to keep the buggy upright, and then be able to drive it now and then so that it stays flat as it gets into the water. That was all very interesting for me to see.
He said it was late that night.
Yeah, it was. So that was an interesting for me being out at the mud park for the first time. I kept complaining because it was so dusty out there. Because we're in Texas. It just hasn't rained.
Yeah.
So it's all dusty, and I'm like, come on, where's all the mud? I had more than enough mud that night, and that was more than enough.
Yeah, definitely was. Well, I mean, so I ended up having to come back over, and when I was going back across that, I went back into the entry part when it was starting to get where Caden was getting stuck at or got stuck or whatever his situation was. And when I went in there and did that, I was like, oh, here we go again. I'm sitting there thinking, worst case scenario, I'm gonna get stuck.
Yeah.
They're stuck over there.
Every time you get into that water and can't see what's there, it makes you think.
And then getting out of there, once we got him uprighted and out of the hole, I'm like, Dakota's like, I don't know where the holes are right here, so be careful backing up and turning around. So I'm like, inching, just waiting for that, drop off into the hole. But I get it turned around, Preston gets turned around, and we all end up on the way out. And
that was interesting.
Yeah. Like, say the least.
At one point, I did fall in that one rut. I'm not sure how you crossed over it, but I fell in, and I was just chest deep, and I was just like, well, that was fun. I'm like, well, good to know.
For sure. And so then the next day, we go for another ride, and that's when I found my little hole that I like to play in, and that was all good. I went through it once, and then we all stopped on the trails, and I'm like, where's all the other guys at? I look back, y'all are all gone. I don't know where y'all went. Y'all went down the High Line or something in the middle of the night. Y'all were going off in y'all's venture. So I turn around and come back, and as we're coming back, no, I think, trying to remember which way I was going. I lost my full drive and all my electronics shut off. When was that? Was it Saturday night or Sunday night? Sunday. It was Saturday night because it
No,
was not.
no, Saturday night because that was the night I decided to just chill at camp.
That's right. So you missed all that fun. So on our way back, I decided to go play through the hole again, which I've been through already several times. I was like, not a problem. Well, my brain wasn't thinking very well, and I was like, hey, dude, you got electrical issues, you've got winch issues, you've got other issues. But at the time, my four-wheel drive was still working at some point in some time. Between all that mess and then me going into that hole, I lost my four-wheel drive. And it wasn't the fact that it wasn't engaging. It's just, I mean, because it showed four-wheel drive on the screen. I went into the hole and my front tires weren't spinning. Well, that hole was, I mean, door deep. I mean, like up to my, I mean, we were getting water up to my seats. And Preston had to pull me back out of that hole. So we get all the way back to camp, and that's when I discovered that the drive shaft on the front prop shaft of that Rhino axle, it's just like a CV joint on an axle, right? So you have the splines that go in there with a constant velocity type axle with carriage and the ball bearings and all
Right.
that, and it just sucked itself out of there. Not really sure how that happened. I ain't quite figured that one out yet. But I did notice that a couple bolts were missing out of my front differential. And so I was like, maybe it got loose, kicked around, and that's what separated the two, right? So we got I sat all day tearing that apart, getting that
Yeah, you
fixed.
spent the morning. We went around and we watched the kids races and some other stuff and hit a little bit of trail.
And got that back together. And then we went again after all that. I think we went and watched the races. We went and watched the big races. And then we went for that last ride that night. And that's when it pulled out again. But mechanically, I mean, the machine was pretty sound. I mean, other than that one piece pulling out, I'll have to figure out why that's doing that. No A arms were broken, no portals were broken, no portals or no.
Yeah, I mean, all of them had a little bit of something, I think. Um, no, Stubby Bob was good. Stubby Bob had no problems.
Stubby Bob had
Just gave a lot of people concussions with that low cage. Right. Yeah. Person had the overheat in the power steering. Zach ended up breaking the ace again too.
Yep.
He sheared some bolts off or something in his steering on the ace.
Yeah.
After
I think his ace was, what was his ace issue? I can't remember now.
It was
Because
something
the
else in the
Ranger
steering.
broke the steer. Oh, it was the mounting plate the steering rack actually bolts to.
Oh, okay.
The wells broke or the tabs or something just was in there, and that's all modified inside there because it's actually kind of like half Ranger, half Ace. I mean, he's done a lot of modifications to the front end. It's not a Ace front end no more because the original Aces had McPherson struts in there, so it didn't have the double A arms like it has now.
Right.
So those modifications might have had something to do with that. I'm not really sure, but we're gonna get in there and button him up and get him back.
So
on
I
the
mean,
again.
and then they just told me today that when they were messing with Caden's unloading it and all that, they figured out he had a ball joint.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
It's just sitting there. So he was driving around and it's just been sitting in the hole.
Oh, that's right. It popped out of
popped
the
out.
lower A arm. I did see that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just sitting there chilling, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did see that. I remember seeing that today.
I mean, it's all little stuff, but it's it was interesting to say the least.
For sure, it really is. And so, with all that said, now we have buggies to get cleaned up. We have buggies to get fixed. We're less than 2 weeks out, man, from our big event.
Yeah.
So, and we've got to have our big machines. We got to have our.
Technically, we have a
problems.
week to have all those
You're right.
machines fixed.
You're right. We have a week to get. So mine's going in the shop this weekend. Just FYI, mine's going to get fixed this weekend, and no matter what it's going to take to get it fixed, mine's going in the shop this weekend and get ready. I'm going to clean it this weekend, 100%. So that I don't want to have to jack with it for the next 2 weeks because I want to be able to put it on the trailer, get on the trailer. I don't want to wait to this last minute stuff and. With everything else I got going and trying to get set up for this event, because we still have a lot of stuff to do for the event itself. I mean, we have, I'm not even gonna get into that because we have so much stuff to get ready for that. It's insane. We can set signs to print, banners to get print, all that kind of stuff. So if y'all haven't done it yet, make sure you get on to the letsgetcrawling.org and get signed up for the event. It's not too late. Most of the activities are out there. They're doing it for free.
Yeah.
The only two that are actually gonna I can't even say we're charging for, but the only two that's costing you money are the two competitions, because most of that money's going back to the winners, right? The first, second, and
Yep.
third place. It's gonna be evenly distributed out to. I mean, not evenly, but it's gonna be tiered, distributed out to the first, second, and third. And I think we're only taking 10% off the top of that to pay back for all the admin fees and all that.
Yep.
But that's a lot of money to be able to think of it. 10 people do that. That's $2,500 at stake there. And I think once we did the math on it and everything else, I think it came out to like $1,700 for first place or something like that. So could win a lot of money.
Good.
But that's coming up October 31st, November 3rd. So we're right around the corner from it. That's what we got to focus on for the next 2 weeks. So we're going to go ahead and probably skip podcast next week just because we got so much going on.
Unfortunately, we don't have much choice.
No, we don't have much choice. We got too much going on. This is going to be our last podcast probably until after the event. But we got a lot to talk about after the event. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be a lot going on. We'll have some great footage coming out.
Well, I mean, we might be able to throw out some quick live.
So, speaking of which, so we are going to do everything we can to have our, some of the stuff that we do out there, not the entire event, but like the competitions, the announcements, some of the stuff going around. We're going to try to do a live podcast on site through the ORS channel and our Let's Get Crawling channel and all that kind of stuff. So make sure y'all focus in on for that, because if you're not going to be able to make the event, that's definitely something not to miss out on. Because I mean, what's better than free TV to watch everybody else screw up their stuff, right?
That's right.
If I'm putting my buggy on the trail, I know Tyler's bringing Barbuster out there, so that'll be a show on its own. So, yeah,
I'm excited.
I'm excited, and I think everybody else is excited. We're getting a lot of feedback online. We're getting a lot of views. I think we had over 20,000 social media views on the event. We've had over 7,000 or 8,000 views on our website. I don't think that many people are going to show up, but that shows you there's some interest in it for sure. And I know there's going to be a lot of Jeep clubs and other clubs out there already. I'm trying not to make this into a Let's Get Crawling podcast, and here I am doing it. But that's pretty much where my brain is at right now.
It's just what we got going on.
We got going on, and that's what the shop talk is about, right? What we got going on. So, and then plus that, I got Taylor's buggy. I promised him I'd have him done by the 1st. So.
Yeah, first of the year. We'll be right back out there trying to race.
Why don't we? Because I don't have enough shit to do.
And let me tell you, after watching those races this last weekend, dude, we got a lot of work to get that thing ready.
Dude, we're gonna make that thing out of
that was
solid steel. Like it's gonna weigh 10,000 pounds just because how strong I gotta.
I mean, worst come to worst, I'm gonna be hounding you every night, going, "Come on, I want to see what you're gonna get done." Because I want to see him get up there and play with the big boys. That was insane to watch. So
you're absolutely right. It was insane to watch, and
watching it on TV does no justice to what those things do in real life.
Not.
Oh my goodness!
And the thing about it too is that the size of them, because Randy's and Mike's and everybody's buggies that were out there, they're freaking 9 foot tall, man. They're huge.
When I got out there, all of a sudden I'm looking around. I always look at your buggy and I'm like, holy crap, this is the biggest buggy around. No, that's just one that's at the rock park.
Yeah.
We got up there and yours was like a mild build, and I'm just like,
mine's like everybody else's build.
What? I was like, this is insane. And then I'm just watching these guys roll by with tires damn near as tall as I am, and I'm going, how is that little tiny motor pushing those? And you guys like all about the gear reductions and the this and the that, and I'm like, me still trying to absorb this whole side by side world is unbelievable. And after seeing some of those buggies, I'm like, all right, I really want to see Taylor's get done now, because I want to see how this thing's going to hold up. And
well, I'm really excited about it, because I really want to see how it actually holds up to what we put it on.
What's the thing?
Preston said something. I can't see what it says.
You might have to show up and people, you might have to show up all the time to push it. Oh, yeah, probably. Once Mama gets home from work and I can get over here and do some playing, that, and we need to get some good footage of that one. I think that's going to be an interesting, from where it is stripped down to just where you guys are planning on doing stuff. We're
So
gonna
that
get some
reminds
footage.
me, I'll hit it real quick so we can go ahead and sum up for tonight. But you know, we've been kind of on the slacking side of getting our social, our YouTube videos and stuff like that out there. You know, Lexi's got a lot going on. She wanted to come on board and help us out and get a lot of that content out there. And she's got schooling going on and other kind of personal stuff going on. But we definitely, it's on my list to get that going again, no matter what the cost is. We really need to get those videos out again. We've got no shop videos going on. We've got no, you know, ride videos going on. Hopefully Lexi's going to pull through. She says she wants to put this Lexi or this full episode together for us for the Muddin For A Cure event. So I'm really looking forward to that. I'm really excited to see that, see what she can come up with. But yeah, you're absolutely right. We've got to get some shop footage going on building some of these builds and stuff like that. All this other stuff that's been going on. We've been slacking, but then again, our brains have been going 3 million miles an hour. So
Yeah, we've been all over the place.
we definitely need to get back onto that. So, well, guys, I think we've sat here and rambled enough for tonight. We got about our hour in tonight, so we appreciate everybody joining us that have been, and definitely look forward to seeing y'all again on the next podcast, and that will be after the event. We will be doing a Monday night podcast for the Let's Get Corona event, though. We got we got 2 more podcasts left before the event, so we got next week and the week after. So
Yep.
we will do those podcasts just to make sure we stay up on top of updates for the event and anything that changes or whatever. So make sure you tune in next Monday at 8 p.m. for the Let's Get Crawling event. Y'all have a good night. Thanks again for joining.
Dust clouds choke the sky, burning tires all around, kicking up the side-by-sides, roaring engines loud. Friends and family gather, let the good times roll. Mud stains our faces, hearts wildly out of control. Slashing the throttle, open feel the power surge. Hitting trails and ridges, laughter's all we heard. Cracks of cold beer bottles, echoes in the air. Sunsets fade tonight, we got no time to spare. Off-road shenanigans, tearing up the ground. Blood and sweat and joy, where camaraderie found. We live for these wild moments like on untamed land. Haunted by the freedom deep within the sand. Bonfires lighting up our faces, cheers and songs. Wheeling through the darkness, feels like we belong. High fives and whoop and holler, life's exhilaration. A brotherhood in motion, pure and proud elation. Engines start to whisper, morning dew presides. Heads held high and dirty pride never hides. Pack up our wild memories, mistakes we did create. Lessons etched in trails, we'll remember every date. Off-road shenanigans, tearing up the ground. Mud and sweat and joy, where camaraderie found. We live for these wild moments like on untamed land. Haunted by the freedom deep within the sand. Off-road shenanigans, tearing up the ground. Mud and sweat and joy, where camaraderie found. We live for these wild